Everyone thought the trade drama was over, but behind the scenes, calls are still coming in for Maxx Crosby. Teams aren't walking away, they're getting quieter. And when deals go quiet like this, it usually means something bigger is happening that nobody wants public yet. Because if this silence breaks, it won't just be a trade, it could expose who got it completely wrong. Subscribe for daily NFL drama, breaking news, and viral sports moments you don't want to miss. It almost happened, and that's what makes this situation so much more complicated. At one point, there were strong indications that Maxx Crosby could be on his way out, with the Baltimore Ravens emerging as a serious landing spot. Everything seemed to be lining up, interest was real, conversations were active, and the idea of pairing Crosby with an already dangerous defense had people around the league paying attention. But then it stopped. Reports suggest the deal didn't fall apart because of value or compensation. Instead, the hesitation came late in the process, raising eyebrows across the league. Some believe it had to do with medical concerns that surfaced during evaluation. Others think it was simply a case of a team getting cold feet at the last possible moment. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but the timing of the collapse tells its own story. And here's the part that makes this even more intriguing: trades don't usually get that far unless both sides are confident. Walking away that late means something shifted, something significant enough to change the entire direction of the deal. Now, instead of closure, there's uncertainty. Instead of clarity, there's speculation. And instead of moving on, teams are still watching closely. Because when a deal dies this late, it usually doesn't stay dead for long. But that failed deal didn't end the story. It quietly set up something even bigger behind the scenes. So if the deal already fell apart, why are teams still picking up the phone? That's the question nobody is answering directly. Because even after all the uncertainty, the Las Vegas Raiders are reportedly still getting calls about Maxx Crosby, and not just casual check-ins. These are real inquiries from teams that clearly haven't moved on. That alone tells you everything you need to know about how Crosby is viewed around the league. Elite pass rushers don't just become available, and when one even might be available, teams start doing things differently. Quiet conversations, private evaluations, no leaks, no headlines, just behind-the-scenes movement. At the same time, the Raiders aren't acting like a team ready to let go. Their asking price remains high, which suggests confidence, not desperation. They're not entertaining low offers, and they're not rushing into anything. If anything, they're controlling the pace, forcing other teams to decide just how badly they want a player like Crosby. Some reports suggest interest could increase as the draft gets closer. That's when pressure builds, that's when teams start reevaluating risks, and that's when situations like this can suddenly flip overnight. Because the truth is, if teams were truly concerned, the calls would have stopped by now. But they haven't. And the way these teams are moving right now, it feels like something is quietly building toward a moment nobody sees coming. But here's the part nobody is fully comfortable saying out loud: what if the concern is actually real? Because behind all the trade calls and speculation, there's one detail that keeps surfacing around Maxx Crosby, and it's making teams hesitate. Reports suggest there could be underlying medical concerns, specifically tied to long-term durability. Nothing has been officially confirmed, but the phrase degenerative knee has quietly entered the conversation. And in the NFL, that's not something teams ignore. That's something they investigate deeply. Now, this doesn't mean Crosby can't perform. In fact, players have had elite seasons while managing similar issues. But for front offices, it's not just about what you can do today, it's about how long you can sustain it. And when you're talking about giving up major assets in a trade, that question becomes even more important. That's why some teams are believed to be approaching this carefully, not walking away but slowing down, taking extra time, possibly even considering private evaluations before making any final decision. Because the last thing any organization wants is to commit big and then regret it later. At the same time, there's another side to this. Some believe the concern might be overstated, that it's being amplified more than necessary, and if that's true, then hesitation could turn into a massive missed opportunity. Because in situations like this, the biggest risk isn't always making the move. Sometimes it's not making it at all. But if the risk is being exaggerated, then someone out there is about to take advantage of that hesitation in a big way. So while everyone else is questioning the risk, the Las Vegas Raiders are doing the exact opposite. They're doubling down, And that might be the most revealing part of this entire situation. Despite all the speculation, all the rumors, and all the hesitation from other teams, the Raiders haven't lowered their price for Maxx Crosby. Not even slightly. That tells you one thing: they're not buying into the doubt. Because if there were serious internal concerns, you'd expect some flexibility, a softer stance, maybe even quiet urgency to get a deal done. But instead, Vegas is holding firm, almost like they're daring teams to walk away. And that creates a different kind of pressure. Now the decision shifts to the rest of the league. Do you trust your own evaluation, or do you trust the hesitation that's already out there? Because the longer the Raiders hold this line, the more it signals confidence, not just in Crosby's talent, but in his long-term value. At the same time, this could also be a strategic move. Drive the price up, wait for a desperate team, let the market build itself, because as the draft approaches, emotions change, plans shift, and suddenly a maybe can turn into a "we need him now." But holding firm like this isn't without risk. Because if the market cools, or if concerns grow louder, that leverage can disappear just as quickly. And if that happens, the Raiders might be forced into a decision they were never planning to make. And here, where this situation takes a dangerous turn for the rest of the league, because a locked-in, motivated Maxx Crosby is already a problem, but this version might be something else entirely. Crosby has built his reputation on relentless effort, high motor, non-stop pressure. He's not the type of player who needs extra motivation, but situations like this, they change things. When your name is suddenly attached to trade rumors, when questions start being raised about your health, when a deal falls apart late, it creates something personal. Some believe this could push Crosby into another level mentally, not just playing to win, but playing to prove something. Prove he's still elite, prove the concerns are overblown, prove that passing on him was a mistake. And in the NFL, that mindset can be dangerous. Because we've seen it before, players who feel doubted tend to respond in ways that shift narratives quickly. A strong start to the season, a few dominant performances, suddenly the conversation flips, doubt turns into regret. Now imagine that happening here. Imagine Crosby coming out healthy, aggressive, and playing like every snap is a statement. That's not just production, that's pressure on every team that hesitated. Because if he delivers at that level, this won't just be about what he's doing on the field. It'll be about what everyone else didn't do. And if that version of Crosby shows up early, some teams might realize they didn't just hesitate, they missed their moment completely. Everything changed the moment the Baltimore Ravens stepped away from the deal, and suddenly, the entire narrative around Maxx Crosby shifted overnight. On paper, it looked simple: a physical concern, a red flag, and a franchise choosing caution over risk. But inside NFL circles, that decision raised eyebrows. Because when a team like the Ravens, known for disciplined roster building, backs out, it sends a message across the league, and teams started paying attention. Some reports suggest the concerns centered around long-term durability, not immediate availability. That's a huge difference. It's not about whether Crosby can dominate this season, it's about how many elite seasons are left. And that's where things get complicated. Because here's the truth: if Crosby goes out and delivers a monster year, 15+ sacks, constant pressure, game-wrecking moments, the conversation flips instantly. Fans, analysts, even front offices will start questioning whether Baltimore overthought the situation. At the same time, the Ravens aren't guessing. They've built a reputation on trusting their medical evaluations. Walking away wasn't emotional, it was calculated. Still, in a league driven by results, logic doesn't always win the argument. And that puts Crosby in a unique position. He's no longer just a star defender for the Las Vegas Raiders, he's now playing with something extra, something personal. Because if he proves them wrong, this won't just be a mistrade. It'll be remembered as a gamble that backfired. But if Crosby explodes this season, who really made the bigger mistake? So now everything comes down to timing and one massive question: what are the Las Vegas Raiders actually going to do with Maxx Crosby? Right now, the price remains sky high. Teams are still calling, still checking, still waiting, but no one is rushing into a deal. And that hesitation says a lot. because once medical concerns enter the conversation, even slightly, front offices slow down fast. Some reports suggest the closer we get to the draft, the more serious these talks could become. Others believe the Raiders might hold firm and ride it out, betting on Crosby to prove everyone wrong on the field. And that's where things get interesting, because if he starts the season dominant, the value skyrockets again, and suddenly the leverage flips completely. But if doubts linger, that window could close just as fast. And when that moment comes, will the Raiders cash in or regret waiting too long? At this point, the situation around Maxx Crosby isn't just about a trade, it's about belief. The Las Vegas Raiders believe he's still elite. Other teams are interested, but cautious. And the Baltimore Ravens, they already made their decision, and now the entire league is watching to see if it holds up. Because if Crosby dominates this season, the narrative flips instantly. Doubt turns into regret, hesitation turns into missed opportunity. But if those concerns prove real, then maybe the warning signs were there all along. Either way, this isn't over. And when the truth finally shows on the field, someone is going to look very wrong.